ever wondered why most educated people find it very difficult to think critically? Today, I'm going to break down our research paper. Why do educated people find it difficult with critical thinking? Critical thinking means looking through information carefully before deciding what to believe and do. That's asking questions, checking evidence, and then avoiding making quick conclusions based on our emotions. But here's the paradox. Schools, governments, and workplaces tend to praise all independent thought, but they reward people who simply agree and conform. So critical thinking is valid in theory, but rarely practiced, even among the educated. Our paper argues critical thinking is essential for personal growth and national development, but it is hard to achieve because of psychological habits, weak educational system, and social pressure to conform. Having a degree doesn't automatically mean you think critically or you're a critical thinker. Many schools reward memorization over real reasoning. We'll end with practical solutions, not just naming the problem.
Critical thinking is the ability of thinking carefully before making a decision. According to some researchers like Daniel Kamal, he divides our minds into two, which is the fast based on our feelings, and slower, which is used in reasoning. Critical thinking helps us use the careful way of thinking so we can check facts, use evidence, and avoid making quick mistakes. Why is critical thinking considered as the most valuable human skill? According to most researchers, it comes down as how we process our information. Critical thinking helps us use the careful way of thinking so we can check facts, use evidence, and avoid making quick mistakes.
Critical thinking is the ability to reason clearly, accurately, and logically. This is echoed by philosophers like John Dewey, Richard Paul, who shows that education should teach students how to think rather than to remember. They also emphasize that critical thinking is more than acquiring knowledge.
We use it every day when we decide if information is true, choose wisely, or solve problems.
It helps to innovate and solve problems in the economy, strengthens democracy through decision making, encourage responsible citizenship, and helps individuals to make better life choices. Therefore, critical thinking is vital foundation for personal growth, social progress, and sustainable development.
Many people, including educated individuals, struggle with critical thinking because the human mind is often relies on quick judgment and mental shortcuts.
Most people struggle to think critically because they rely on fast intuitive thinking, and that is system 1, which saves mental effort, instead of using slower and careful reasoning to evaluate information.
Some common barriers include confirmation biases, where people only accept information that support their beliefs, and the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people overestimate their knowledge. These barriers make it harder to question ideas, learn from mistakes, and think objectively.
Also, someone who has just watched several news reports about armed robbery, for instance, may overestimate the overall crime rate in their area simply because vivid examples are fresh in memory.
We often think of education as key to critical thinking, but is that always true?
Beyond psychology, the environment people live in also influence the way they think critically. Many school systems prioritize memorization and examination other than analysis and inquiry. Dewey condemned this kind of teaching way back in 1910, stating that it trains students to only absorb information passively and not relate with it reflectively.
Today, this tendency towards conformity is supercharged by digital media. We often exist in echo chamber where we only consume news that mirror our existing view. This makes it incredibly difficult to evaluate information objectively, no matter how educated we are.
So basically, just because someone has gone to school and had a degree doesn't mean they're good at thinking for themselves or figuring out something. All I'm trying to say is getting a degree doesn't automatically make you smart or good in making decisions. Sometimes people with a lot of education can be overconfident and less likely to admit when they are wrong. Even with a lot of education, people can still believe fake news or make bad decisions because they don't really think critically. It's like having a lot of tools but not knowing how to use them properly.
Recognizing the problem is only useful if it leads to practical solutions. Several scholars propose specific reforms that could help close the gap between education and genuine critical thinking. Kahneman recommends that students be taught directly about cognitive biases, including confirmation bias, overconfidence, and anchoring. This helps students become more aware of their own thought processes. Understanding these mental shortcuts is the first step towards resisting them. Richard Paul and Linda Elder argue that critical thinking should be applied across every discipline. They highlight intellectual traits such as intellectual courage and fair-mindedness, which help students move past defending their own ego and toward genuinely pursuing the truth. Harvey Siegel's idea of the critical spirit calls for classrooms that welcome debate and respectful disagreements, where reasoning skills are consistently applied rather than only performed when tested.
In conclusion, critical thinking is essential for making better decisions, personal growth, and societal development. However, habits like confirmation bias, emotional reasoning, and rote learning makes it difficult to practice critical thinking carefully. Education alone does not guarantee critical thinking. Degrees may measure academic success, but not necessarily the ability to question, analyze, and reason carefully. Therefore, schools, workplaces, and society must actively encourage critical thinking in order for it to become a daily routine instead of an ideal. Thank you.